Hi, I'm Dr. Gray Parrot, and welcome back to the Animal Truth Lab. So this whole month, I've been doing one single job. I've been the inspector who goes around signing off on the work of animal architects. I've got a clipboard, a checklist, and a stamp, and one building at a time, I decide whether it passes. This month alone, I've signed off on an engineer that builds dams and reroutes an entire stream, and on a real oddball who, purely to win over a mate, went and built a little pavilion so gorgeous it's almost ridiculous. Each one more impressive than the last, and each one weirder than the last. And the very last building of the month, let me tell you, is the strangest of them all. So strange that by the end of it, I had to throw out the whole inspection form in my hand and swap it for a completely different one. Let me first introduce you to the builder. Down on the forest floor of the tropical rainforests of Central and South America, there's a little green river that flows. Except it isn't water, it's millions of ants, and every single one of them is holding up a scrap of fresh green leaf several times bigger than its own body, carried high over its head, all of them lined up in one long column, marching in the same direction down a narrow trail they've worn bare with their own feet. This ant is today's star, the leafcutter ant, scientific name Atta cephalotes. And who gave it that name? None other than the great father of taxonomy himself, Linnaeus, who named it with his own hand all the way back in 1758. That word cephalotes means big-headed, because the largest soldiers in this species carry one absurdly oversized head. Hold on to that name, because in just a moment, this ant is going to completely overturn everything you thought you knew about ants that carry leaves. The very first question on my inspection form is this: these millions of leaves, where are they all going and what are they for? And you'll say, come on, that's obvious. Ants carrying leaves? They're hauling them home to eat, of course. Ah, and that right there is the single biggest, deepest misunderstanding the whole world has about the leafcutter ant. So here's a fact that's going to stop you in your tracks. Leafcutter ants don't eat leaves. Not one leaf. Really, not one leaf. So why go to all that back-breaking trouble to carry them? Okay, here comes the truth. They're farmers. They carry those leaves down underground not as dinner, but as fertilizer. They chew each leaf into tiny mouthfuls, spread the mush out into soft little garden beds, and then, on top of those beds, they grow a very special fungus, one that can barely thrive at all unless these ants look after it. That fungus has a name, Leucoagaricus. And what the ants actually eat are the little white, plump, nutrient-packed nubs this fungus sprouts. Scientists call them Gundulidia. So do you follow? The leaves are the fertilizer, the fungus is the crop, and the ant's real food is the fruit that crop produces. They aren't porters and they aren't leaf-munching bugs. They are, through and through, farmers running a farm underground. And this farmer has farming baked right into its bones. When scientists pulled apart the leafcutter ant's genes, they found it has actually lost the gene to make one of the essential amino acids it needs, because that particular nutrient is something its fungus prepares for it. Its entire life's nutrition has been fully outsourced to its crop. Take it away from the farm and it simply cannot survive. Now, if you're running a farm, you need all kinds of workers, right? And this is the second astonishing thing about the leafcutter ant. Inside a single leafcutter nest, every last ant is a daughter of the very same mother, the queen, which makes them all sisters. But these sisters come in wildly different sizes. The smallest kind, the little gardeners, are so tiny they're about the size of a single sesame seed. The largest kind, the big-headed soldiers, are roughly the size of a peanut. Just how big is that gap? The width of the head alone differs by a factor of 8, and the total body mass can differ by as much as around 200 times. And it's not because they carry different genes, it's because of how much fungus they got to eat when they were young. The ones that ate more grew into the big ones. And a sister's size decides her job for life. The little gardeners stay underground, tending the fungus and feeding the babies. The medium-sized ones are the harvesters, heading out to cut and haul the leaves, and the big-headed soldiers stand guard and defend the home. One nest is a single underground agriculture company, with every role clearly divided up.
So how do the harvesters slice through such tough leaves so fast and so cleanly? There are two brilliant pieces of technology hidden here. First, that pair of big jaws, its jaw blades. Mixed right into the cutting edge is a heavy dose of the metal zinc, so much of it that it makes up around 16% of the blade's dry weight. With that zinc added, the blade becomes nearly 3 times harder and so sharp that some scientists say it's as tough and durable as a stainless steel knife. But be careful, it hasn't actually got a little strip of metal bolted onto it. What's happening is that zinc atoms have been woven, one by one, into the very material its body is made of, turning it into an upgraded, reinforced biological blade. The second piece of tech is even niftier. As it cuts, the ant's abdomen vibrates at high speed, sending that vibration up into its jaws, about 1,000 vibrations every second. That's a higher, faster frequency than a mosquito whining right next to your ear. And that buzzing pulls the soft young leaf taut, so it's far easier to slice through, which is the exact same principle as the vibrating microtome scientists use in the lab to cut specimens. Neat coincidence, right? And here's the thing, this blade goes blunt with heavy use, and the moment it does, that ant automatically retires. She stops being a harvester and switches over to hauling leaves full-time. Even the business of swapping her out when the blade wears down, they've got it all worked out. The cut leaves have to be carried home along that green river, and that trail is a highway they've deliberately stripped of every plant and trampled flat. It can run for tens of meters out from the front door of the nest. So here's the puzzle. An ant's eyesight is poor, so on the pitch-dark forest floor, how do they find the route and not get lost? The answer is scent. Along the way, they lay down a wildly powerful pheromone, sensitive to a frankly absurd degree. Scientists have done the math, and in theory, just 1/3 of a milligram of this scent molecule, which is lighter than a single sesame seed, would be enough to lay out a scent trail that stretches all the way around the entire planet, and their sisters would still be able to smell it and follow it. That whole highway is held together by nothing more than one faint thread of scent. But that trail is not a safe place. There's a very small parasitic fly, a phorid fly, that zeroes in on the harvesters lugging leaves, trying to dive bomb down and lay its eggs right on the harvester's head. And the poor harvester has both of her jaws completely full of leaf, so she can't fight back. So what happens? At that very moment, one of the tiniest little gardeners will hop up onto the leaf being carried, catch a free ride, and take up position on the top edge of it, becoming a riding bodyguard, helping to chase off any phorid fly that dives in. And while she's up there, she also cleans off the surface of the leaf, getting it ready to go straight into the garden. I mean, this family has even thought through their own security detail, haven't they?
Speaking of scale, let me hit you with a comparison that'll floor you. A single mature leafcutter ant farm harvests in one day a quantity of leaves you can put right up against how much a large grazing animal eats in a day. And because their appetite runs that big, they are, in fact, the single biggest leaf-harvesting herbivore in the whole neotropical rainforest. And notice what I said, biggest by leaves harvested, not by leaves eaten, because they don't eat a single one. That same enormous appetite also turns them into a major pest that gives local farmers headaches. Coffee, citrus, cocoa, around 50 different crops can be stripped down to bare twigs overnight. But they don't just harvest at random either. If some kind of leaf turns out to harm their fungus and makes the garden grow poorly, they'll gradually learn to steer clear of that tree and dutifully pick the leaves their fungus likes instead. After all, to these farmers, the health of the crop comes first. All right, now let's follow the leaves all the way down underground. And this is the building I actually came here to inspect. I'd assumed I'd find one big, comfy ant nest inside, and instead I stopped dead. This is a nest? This is an underground megacity. It can run several meters deep, with over 1,000 rooms all connected to one another, room after room of gardens and room after room of garbage chambers. Scientists wanted to know what the inside actually looks like, so they pulled off something pretty wild. They found an abandoned nest belonging to a close relative of the leafcutter ant, poured cement down into it, waited for the whole thing to set solid, and then carefully dug it back out. And what they excavated was a gigantic structure like a three-dimensional maze with over 1,000 rooms.
But the thing that truly made me swap out my whole inspection form was this. I kept turning it over in my head. Why build a city this huge? Is it to live in? No. And I finally worked it out. This city isn't built to live in at all. It's built to farm in. It is a climate control facility put up for one reason, to wait on those fussy, delicate fungus crops. Think about it. Millions of ants plus a great big spread of fungus all breathing together down underground generate a huge amount of heat and a huge amount of carbon dioxide. And if it all just sits there trapped, the crop can't handle it. So how do the leafcutter ants get fresh air in? Not by switching on a fan the way we would. No, what they use is completely effort-free passive ventilation. Scientists have actually measured this on one of their relatives. Right at the center of the top of the nest, there's a big tower-like opening, and when the wind sweeps across the ground above, it draws the hot carbon dioxide-heavy air up and out through that central tower. Meanwhile, fresh air gets pulled back in through the smaller openings around the edges. The whole city breathes, all on its own, just off the wind. And they go to all this elaborate trouble for one single purpose, to keep that patch of crops down below living in perfect comfort. What's the one thing a farm dreads most? An outbreak of disease. And the leafcutter ant's garden has a mortal enemy, a parasitic fungus that comes specifically to ambush and infect their crop, called Scovopsis. Once that disease takes hold, an entire garden can be wiped out. So how do they defend against it? This is the column on my form that gave me actual goosebumps. This farm keeps its very own antibiotics department. The leafcutter ants carry, right on their bodies, a symbiotic bacterium that secretes antibacterial compounds. And on top of that, they've got an unusually well-developed gland that puts out a chemical weapon that works like a disinfectant. These two lines of defense join forces to push that troublemaking parasitic fungus back down. And you know what's the truly humbling part? It wasn't until 1928 that a man named Fleming discovered the very first antibiotic, penicillin. But the leafcutter ant's whole system of using bacteria plus chemicals to hold disease at bay has already been quietly running for tens of millions of years. Back when humans were still running around barefoot in the forest, these ants were already seasoned old farmers who knew how to disinfect and protect their crops from plague. And by the way, this farm handles even its garbage with real care. They keep dedicated garbage chambers, holding all the used-up, potentially disease-carrying waste far away from the clean gardens, and they send special sanitation workers in to deal with it. And those sanitation workers usually just stay put in the garbage zone and never come back to the gardens, precisely so they don't carry any disease home with them. This is called social immunity, a whole colony that, like a single body, knows how to quarantine the dirty stuff and keep it apart.
Okay, now we come to the last and most important column on my inspection form. What year did this farm first open for business? My first thought was, well, humans started farming around 12,000 years ago, so ants, I figured, are probably about the same, give or take. Huh? Wait, no, that's not right. I'd better go back and check the numbers again. Because this figure is so outrageous that the first time I found it, I was sure I'd made an arithmetic mistake. Fungus farming ants started farming not thousands of years ago, but tens of millions of years ago. A 2008 study estimated that their ancestors began cultivating fungus around 50 million years ago, and a more recent 2024 study pushed that date back even further to roughly 66 million years ago, which is right about the time just after that giant asteroid slammed into the Earth and wiped out the dinosaurs. Now, the particular leafcutter ants we're talking about today are a later branch of this ancient farming family. They only split off around 8 to 12 million years ago, and they're the ones who've taken farming to its absolute peak, a kind of higher agriculture. But whichever number you go with, their farming predates human farming by tens of millions of years. And do you realize what that means? We've always assumed that agriculture was one of the great inventions of human civilization. But across the entire animal kingdom, the number of creatures that genuinely grow their own food to feed themselves comes to just 4. Humans, a kind of beetle called the bark beetle, termites, and ants. And the ants are among the most senior, most veteran farmers of those 4. So listen closely. Humans were not the first farmers on Earth. Ants that farm had already been at it for tens of millions of years before we ever showed up.
By this point, there is actually one last question still stuck on my form. A question that's been nagging at me since the very first building I inspected this month. For such an intricate underground city, who's the chief engineer? Who drew up the blueprints? I searched and searched, and the answer left me completely quiet. There is none. No chief engineer, no blueprint, not a single ant anywhere that understands what the whole city even looks like. A mature leafcutter ant colony can have, according to the literature, up to around 5 million workers, more than the entire population of a city like Los Angeles. And every one of those millions of ants is simply, on pure instinct, doing the one small step right in front of it. Cut this leaf, carry this bit of soil, patch this stretch of wall. And yet, millions of tiny workers, each one just minding the single step in front of it, somehow grow, all by themselves, an underground city, complete with farmland, ventilation, disease control, and a waste dump. Nobody's giving the orders, and yet the order simply emerges on its own. Scientists have a name for this phenomenon, a superorganism, where it's only the whole colony, all added together, that behaves like one truly living creature. And this is exactly the final lesson I've taken away from a month of stamping and signing off on the work of these animal architects. The most remarkable architecture in the animal world often isn't drawn up by one genius architect at all. It's lived into being by a vast crowd of workers who never had a blueprint to begin with. And the most extreme building of the whole month, well, guess what? It isn't even a house, it's a farm.
And finally, let me tell you about the real central figure of this whole farm, the queen. She's the mother of the entire nest, the largest of them all, and she can live for 15 to 20 years. In her whole lifetime, she flies out to mate only once while she's young, and she stores that sperm away and doles it out slowly over the next decade or 2. But the single most important thing she ever does happens before she even leaves her old home to go found a new farm. She secretly tucks a tiny piece of the old home's fungus away inside her own mouth and carries it off with her. Once she touches down, she spits that little piece of fungus back out and plants it as the very first garden bed of her new farm. That one small mouthful of fungus is the seed of an entire future city. Have you noticed something? This entire farm was never, from beginning to end, a one-ant show. It's the ant, the fungus it grows, and those antibiotic-making bacteria riding on its body. 3 parties, bound together, that have lived side by side for tens of millions of years, none of them able to get by without the others. Take the fungus away, and the ant starves. Take the ant away, and the fungus withers. Take the bacteria away, and the garden falls to plague. So what the leafcutter ant teaches us isn't just the simple headline that, hey, animals can farm too. It made me realize something deeper. The most extraordinary achievements in this world are so often not built by any one individual, but held up together by several different kinds of life, all bound to one another, all needing one another. All right, this inspection form, I can finally put my stamp on it. Except I've got to cross out those words at the top, building inspector, and change them to agriculture inspector. Because this last building is the oldest and the most awe-inspiring farm I have ever inspected in my life. I'm Dr. Gray Parrot. See you next time. Bye. Fighter termites stack a mud tower taller than a giraffe, and it breathes, but they aren't ants. Sociable weavers build the world's biggest bird nest, 100 families under one roof. Staghorn coral looks like a stone, but it's a city built by millions of tiny animals. The satin bowerbird builds a whole stage to show off, hoarding every blue treasure. Leafcutter ants carry leaves they never eat. They're farmers growing mushrooms. Quick quiz, which builders are totally blind, and whose city can you see from space? Missed some? Go watch them. Seen them all? Watch again for the details you missed. Like, subscribe, and share with your best friend. I'm Dr. Gray Parrot. Thanks for visiting the Animal Truth Lab. See you next time. Bye-bye.